we are talking about personal toxicity. Oh, shucks, that's a big issue. I know it is. It's something that we often think about from the perspective of, oh, other people are toxic, not necessarily me. I'm just fine. I'm not the toxic one. It's all the other people that I interact with. But really, is that the truth? Is that the situation? Are we really looking at ourselves in a way that would be most beneficial to making sure that what we put out is more positivity, so therefore we can attract more positivity? So today, in talking about personal toxicity, I want to touch on a couple of things. One thing that I found, and it's a statistic, and if you've listened, you know I'm a statistic person because those are interesting to me at times. Um, the mental health, the National Mental Health Association of America put out a statistic in, I believe it was 2019, so not too long ago, that 84% of women and 75% of men report having had interaction with a toxic person at some point. Now, even though today's topic is personal toxicity, we will look at how that can be an impact, because that's a heck of a large number of people. That's like one in every eight, and one in all, well, pretty much one in every eight people. And that's report having interaction with toxic people. Now, the reason I bring that up is because personal toxicity is a learned thing. Okay, toxic behaviors are learned. With that being said, that the toxic trait is, excuse me, the toxic characteristic is learned, then that means it can be unlearned. It can be changed around. It can be looked at and evaluated. However, sometimes we don't even realize that we're toxic at all, because who really walks up to you on a regular basis and say, hey, you know, that was kind of a toxic interaction you had with me. Usually people avoid us, stop dealing with us altogether as best they can, or go talk to everybody else about what you've done, and you still don't even know that they received it in that way. Now, with that being said, I want to kind of make a difference between toxic traits and toxic behaviors. Okay, a toxic trait can be adaptable. That means a trait is something that's more innate, but it can be adapted to where it's more positive and influences others in a way that's not negative or not as negative. Toxic behavior is something that's totally and completely changeable. Okay. That means a toxic behavior is a choice. And that's based on your belief system, based on the way you think about that situation, and based on what you believe is the safest way for you to respond or interact with that person. That's the behavior part of it. And it's a choice. So it's very changeable. So a toxic personality trait influences how we think, how we feel, how we act. And we also have to look at personality traits make up a person. So, with that being said, when we think about toxicity, I don't want us to think about it in the form of, oh, this is a trait, this is just me, it's okay. It's not okay. Ever, ever, never okay. The thing with a trait is usually that's something that's passed down. It's like if you think about being extroverted or introverted, that's what that is kind of looking at. Are you extroverted? Are you introverted? Are you introverted in such a way that is harmful to your relationships and interactions with other people? Or are you extroverted so much that you end up turning people off from you? Now, the things that influence traits, which makes them adaptable, is your life experiences, your belief systems, and major life stages. So, to kind of explain that, your experiences would be, for instance, let's say you've experienced some trauma, you've experienced some difficult relationships, your family may not be well connected. Okay, those are some big, huge experiences that can influence the way your belief system is built. And your belief system has very a various amount of layers to it. But with your belief system, you interact with people in a way that is very um, assuming. Okay. And in assuming, that means you may have a belief about, or a collective belief about, all men, all women, all people of a certain race, all people of a certain age group, things like that. Major life stages are big, huge changes. Like, for one, a major life stage would be whatever age you were when you became totally independent from whoever your caregiver was. That's a big, huge major life stage. Whenever you became a parent, that's a big, huge major life stage if you think about it. Also, if you were ever in a long-term significant relationship, whether it's marriage or just long-term dating or whatever that is, looking at all of that, okay? So the things that are behaviors, which are changeable, remember, those are easily changeable because it's all about your choices in the moment. And you have to be mindful about what you're experiencing, what you're thinking, what you're feeling in the moment, and how that influences the choices you make. So, toxic behaviors, the way those come in is because if you have these traits and you have these big, huge life experiences, let's say some traumas, your belief system is kind of skewed to say this certain group of people may be negative, and I've had this big, huge change in my life, so therefore there's additional stress. Then I may interact with people in a very toxic manner. It's not saying that that's who you are. The reason that toxicity is coming out is it's a way of protecting self, usually. Usually people are not focused on, hey, I really get joy from being really ornery and really mean and very difficult with other people. Usually a person that's interacting with another person in a toxic manner is because they believe that's the safest way to be at that point in time. And a case in point I want to kind of touch on is, as you guys know, I work with various populations. I also have worked with extensively people who are accused and charged with domestic violence. So I'm working with the person that committed the violence. And with that, one of the clients that I worked with, it sticks out in my mind every time I think about toxic traits, because this became a group topic when he brought this up during that group session, is that he did not believe that a person that he was dating loved him unless they were willing to continuously argue with him. That's how he believes love is shown. So he even admitted that he would just kind of pick at people until there was an argument that would start. And then he would feel like, oh, this person loves me because they're arguing with me. But the minute that person chose to stop arguing or not feed into his toxicity, then there was a problem. And I was astounded with that. But the irony for me is that I've heard that even in songs and on talk shows. And just with other clients in passing, that they've identified the same thing. If a person does not want to argue with me, then they don't love me. So therefore, I need to get out of that relationship because they don't feel like I'm enough to argue with. So then therefore, they don't care. I was astounded, especially to get such a understanding of, even, where did that come from? And so this gentleman that was in class with me, he explained that that's all he's seen in all the relationships in his family, even in his community that he grew up in. That's all he had seen, is that couples that argue, they really love each other. They stick together through thick and thin. Those that are even physically violent toward each other, those folks really, really love each other because they're willing to put in blows for it. And I'm like, golly, I don't want that kind of love. I'm glad I'm not from that neighborhood. But yeah, and so we have to really look at some things that would be considered possible toxic behavior. So there are like at least 25 that I came across. We're not going to go over all 25, of course, because I want to point out some that kind of stick out that could go be very broad. And then I want to talk about being able to identify how to start resolving those characteristics. Okay. How to address like, hey, I don't want to maintain this, because we have to look at this toxicity is not just impacting you, it's impacting your children, it's impacting your family, it's impacting your friends, it's impacting whoever your significant other is. If you're able to really look back at, let's say, the last 5 relationships you've had, look at how long did they last, look at what did they all have in common, look at were they pretty much the same relationship, just different people, and then also what did you contribute to the relationship, the mental, emotional part. And what did you contribute to the breakup, the mental, emotional part? I don't want you to think about, well, sex was wonderful and that was what I contributed. Because if that's how you contribute, that's toxic, because you're not investing any more of yourself than just physical. So let's first, before I go forward with that, let me go ahead and again thank you for tuning in to Emerging Ease with Keisha on the Batchelor News Radio Network. I want to remind you to tune in for Featured Album Friday, this Friday at 5:30 p.m. with the featured artist of SWV. Also tune in to all of the love songs that are played during Whisper Softly every Sunday through Friday from 8 p.m. to midnight on the Batchelor News Radio Network. And we'll take a brief break.
Have you seen that new plastic coffee container? Did you know it actually absorbs aroma from the coffee? At Maxwell House, we think the aroma should stay where it belongs, in the coffee, not the container. Our steel can won't absorb our rich coffee aroma, and, unlike plastic, it's a perfect barrier against coffee's worst enemies, moisture and oxygen. So choose Maxwell House with the fresh steel can, and make every day good to the last drop.
All right. One thing that I did forget to mention at the beginning, which I always like to include, is if you ever want to reach out, feel free to do so in the chat. Also, you can look up Emerging Ease on Facebook. Feel free to join the group. We all kinds of good things are put in there on a daily basis. Inspirations, things to think about, things to challenge yourself on, because I'm very, very consistent with always encouraging people, challenge yourself. Even if you feel like, hey, I'm in the best spot ever, challenge yourself to say, what's my next step? How else can I continue to work to improve myself? Also, if there's any questions, comments, or anything that you have throughout the week, feel free to email me at emergingease@gmail.com. Emerging Ease is all one word. Okay. So the first toxic personal trait, which is adaptable. Remember, it can be changed. It takes a little bit more work than the behavior, but the behavior goes hand in hand with it. So if you can change the behavior, that means you can challenge the beliefs that support the toxic personal trait. Okay. So first one is negativity. A person with negativity may see the world as cold and cruel and evil. They may frequently complain, ruin the fun, or dampen people's spirits with defeatist comments and actions. I know, if you don't know, I know you have come across the person that has interacted with other people in this way. I know you have, because I have. No matter what you say, you can say it's sunny outside. Well, the sun is too hot. It's too bright. It's too dry outside. It's drying up all the water. It's doing something. Everything is horrible, no matter what you say. But if you're a person that has this and you don't see any positive on a consistent basis in much of anything, why not challenge that? Because if you look at negativity, this negativity is a space that when you get into that space, it gets good and uncomfortable, but comfortable at the same time. That means it's easy for you to be stuck. And then it becomes the justification that many people use for this mindset is that hey, I'm being realistic. And in being realistic, it's saying that, oh shoot, I don't see any positive in this. I only see negative. So we'll talk more about that next week. I want to thank you all for tuning in to Emerging Ease with Keisha on the Batchelor News Radio Network. Remember to tune in on Airtime Pro for any replays throughout the week. We'll continue with this and finish it up next week. Thank you.